So I'm going to explain why this camera right here, the Sony ZV-1 Mark II, is actually the best camera I've bought in 2025. So let's get it. So the ZV-1 Mark II has a Type 1" sensor. It has an 18 to 50mm lens that has a variable aperture of an f1.8 to an f4. It has a 3-stop internal ND filter system, has the ability to do 20.1 megapixel raw stills. It can capture crispy 4K footage. It has a built-in 3-capsule microphone system. It has a single SD card slot, the NP-BX1 battery. It has a 921K dot flip screen, a 3.5mm jack, a USB-C port, and a micro HDMI port on the side. The whole design is nice and pocketable and weighs a total of 292 grams. Now we will dive deep into the specs of this, comparing it to my APS-C, full frame, and even my smartphone camera, just to see what this actually does in comparison to those. But first we have to talk about the biggest reason why I actually purchased this camera. Now, first of all, it comes down to compactness and size. This literally fits directly into my pocket. Now, when it comes to traveling around day to day, you don't actually want to carry around a massive mirrorless camera with a huge microphone on top and a big vlogging sort of handle. You just want something really small and compact that you can pull directly out of your little shoulder bag or even out of your pocket. And look, when it comes to compactness and size, this is where I could actually mount this in a whole bunch of different situations where I normally wouldn't mount my A7 IV or my Sony FX6. Like, this is really amazing that I can actually put this in certain situations where I could normally be limited. And look, if you are bound to no limitations, that is a massive win for the ZV-1 Mark II because your creativity is pretty much endless. Now, I know there are a couple of other options that are very similar size, in terms of the Osmo Pocket 3, which is extremely popular when it comes to travel vlogging, even the DJI Action 5 Pro or the GoPro Hero 13, even your smartphone. But when it comes to actually having a very separate camera that's quite durable, I feel like this one ticks all the boxes that I needed for my everyday carry when it comes to vlogging and all my trips. And to back up this reason, this camera is great to have because it has a removable battery, unlike your iPhone or the Osmo Pocket 3 where you cannot remove the battery. So if it goes flat, you're going to have to charge it up. This one, if it goes flat, you can just put in a brand new battery, which is obviously nice. Now, don't get me wrong, an APS-C camera or a full frame camera is going to obliterate this camera when it comes to the image quality, and we will obviously see that soon. But the saying goes, the best camera that you actually have is the one that's actually on you. And one of the reasons why I actually considered something like this is because I actually have started a second channel. I haven't posted any videos on there yet, but they will be coming. But it's mainly about fitness and food, and I just wanted an everyday carry camera that I could actually start vlogging and, taking out with me that wouldn't sort of attract attention. And that's one of the second reasons, is that I just wanted a small camera that wouldn't attract attention, that will give me a decent enough image quality that I could obviously tell the story, not get kicked out of locations or even just stared at really strangely. Because hey, look, vlogging in front of people is extremely daunting, and I know how that feels because I'm a very introverted sort of person. I'm not extroverted and quite out there, so having something really small that people just don't really know what I'm doing, that suits me perfectly. Now, the third one comes down to durability. The reason why I didn't take my Osmo Pocket 3 is that it actually has a moving gimbal on top. So this would just be another point of failure in my opinion. I just don't want to be throwing this around in my pocket, taking it out, and it actually, completely ruining while I'm actually traveling around. And look, not to say that that will actually happen, but I'm just not a fan of this form factor when it comes to my everyday carry. I just feel like having more of a compact camera is just more suitable in my situations. And look, I know it's personal preference, but I just feel like that this would last longer than the Osmo Pocket 3 would if you're taking it in and out of your bag and your pocket each and every single time. Now, one of the major reasons why I don't want to use my smartphone compared to this is that I want to keep it separate. Like, I've only got a certain amount of storage on my smartphone, and I don't want to have to, go back through my log and delete all the videos that I've actually transferred over to my laptop or my PC. I just want to be able to take my SD card out, put it straight into my laptop or PC, and transfer the files straight away. Like, it just seems so much easier in terms of workflow when I actually have a very separate camera with an SD card compared to my smartphone. iPhone. And look, I know it is very simple when it comes to Apple, and if you do have an iPhone and a MacBook, you can literally just airdrop the footage straight away. And I really do wish camera manufacturers would implement this kind of strategy. I know Sony do have the Creators app where you can actually go from your camera to your smartphone, but going from your camera to your computer is what I do want to see in the future. Just a very seamless sort of flow of taking footage off this and directly onto your PC or laptop. Now, I do have to mention that I do have a short form course which, teaches you all about Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts and how to optimize your storytelling and get the views that you actually deserve. Now, I've grown my Instagram platform to over 350,000 subscribers using short form content. And in that course, I dive deep into how the algorithm works and what you need to do to optimize the algorithm and reach the audience that you actually need to reach. So be sure to check that out in the link in the description below, but let's get back into the ZV-1 Mark II. Okay, let's dive into image quality. Now, when it comes to comparing this side by side, you're obviously going to see a difference, but if you are really focused on the story that the person's actually trying to tell you, you won't actually notice any difference. And the great thing is that this actually has a Type 1 sensor. It has an f1.8 aperture, so it's fairly decent in low light. It's not obviously absolutely incredible, but it still shoots 4K footage. So now comparing the image quality with the Sony ZV-1 Mark II against a full frame Sony a7 IV camera right here, this is a very difficult situation because we're in a controlled environment and generally they are looking very similar. But if you go to an uncontrolled environment, let's say a low light situation, this is probably where the a7 IV will probably look better because it's got a larger full frame sensor compared to the Type 1 sensor in the ZV-1 Mark II. But I'm certainly not claiming the ZV-1 Mark II is the same quality as a full frame Sony mirrorless camera. I'm just saying that it could look similar in a lot of different situations, and it definitely holds up well for considering that this camera is like a quarter or a fifth of the price. And also you can see the color differences between the cameras because the a7 IV is a 10-bit camera, whereas the ZV-1 Mark II is an 8-bit camera. You can see the digital sharpness in the ZV-1 Mark II. The a7 IV looks higher resolution, much more crisp and detailed. But in all seriousness, if we weren't putting this side by side on a screen, you probably wouldn't really tell a difference because the image quality still looks perfectly fine. And it really does just come down to exposing the scene correctly and tweaking the colors to making it look a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it's storytelling that matters the most. Now, if you are a creator that loves creating content outdoors, you can see here I'm completely blown out and overexposed. Put that ND filter on and that is amazing. This has an internal ND filter of 3 stops, so I am correctly exposed. My shutter speed can be normal, so I have normal motion blur. I don't have to crank my aperture, and my base ISO of 125 is right there. So this is fantastic. But one of the situations is if it is too bright, you can still be a little bit overexposed. I think my arm's correctly exposed. The sun is under the clouds, but I wish it was a little bit stronger. But that is the thing, we do have a small body, there's at least an ND filter. The Sony mirrorless cameras don't have ND filters inside unless it's my expensive Sony FX6. That's the only body that I personally have that has an internal ND filter. So now one of the cons that does come with the internal ND filter is that this doesn't have IBIS. Now, if you don't know what IBIS is, essentially it's in-body image stabilization. The sensor will actually move to counteract the wobbles that you're experiencing in real time, which is pretty phenomenal. This is just a digital stabilization with a crop as well. So generally what happens is that the IBIS is better when it comes to stabilization. Newer Sony cameras will actually have IBIS plus digital stabilization, which is pretty incredible. Like the ZV-E1 and some of the other newer Sony cameras will have dynamic active stability, which is a crazy crop, but it's almost like using a gimbal. But hey, looking at the results, you can see the digital stabilization is more than enough for majority of the situations, and most people will probably put this camera on tripod, on a desk, and just, talk to the camera like that. So this is where you can turn it off and then it won't crop in, but it's still perfectly fine in a lot of vlogging situations. Now also, one of the biggest reasons why I did actually choose this camera was the optical zoom. So this actually has optical zoom and not digital zoom like the Osmo Pocket 3 has. So this one has a lens on there that goes from 80mm to 50mm. And you can even get 1.5 times more zoom with the clear image zoom on this camera, which is a digital version on top of the optical zoom. Now the one minor downside if you are filming in manual, this is a variable aperture lens. It goes from 1.8 to an f4. So if you are zooming in, it does start to get a little bit darker. Then you obviously have to change your ISO level to match obviously that exposure change. But if you are someone that just locks in your shutter speed and has auto aperture and auto ISO, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Like I said at the start, it's mainly about the story and what the person's trying to convey anyway, rather than the image quality. The image quality realistically is something that just supplements the storytelling. Now also, because it is a very small camera, you do have a very small battery. Now these don't really last very long, but if you're constantly turning the camera off and on, they're still going to last you maybe half the day, even 3/4 of the day. So even if you just get 1 or 2 extra batteries, you're going to be absolutely fine. Now I did actually buy this Teleson battery charger, which holds 3 batteries and also 2 SD cards as well. And I had absolutely no issues with just having 1 battery all day and literally just plugging the camera in to trickle charge here and there if I was in the car, if I was at a location, or if I was back in my hotel room. 1 battery pretty much served me perfectly fine. But you know, I did actually have those 2 batteries with me because it's a very small case anyway. And it's pretty much the same size as the camera. And this literally just fit in my side pouch in my bag. It's not heavy at all, so it doesn't really add any sort of extra weight. Both of these systems is extremely light, especially if you do compare it to a larger APS-C or full frame system. Now, when it comes to slow motion in this camera, it's something that I don't use, so I don't really worry about it. But if you do want to film some slow motion, it has to be in 1080p, but it gives you 120 frames per second. It's nothing to compare it to the APS-C and full frame cameras of modern day cameras, but still it's fairly decent, and it's something that you could consider if you wanted to use it, but still the 4K 25 frames per second is perfectly enough for what I need. Now, if I am doing low light pieces or talking head pieces like this is where I would pair it with my ZV-E1. Now, this is a full frame camera. It's got a 12 megapixel sensor, but the image quality is absolutely phenomenal. The price obviously is polarizingly different compared to the ZV-1 Mark II. And I guess if you are investing in the full frame system, that's where you have to get E-mount lenses. And you know, lenses themselves can cost twice, if not 3 times more than the body of this camera alone. But realistically, these are just tools to have in your toolkit, and they do suit sort of slightly different people in different situations. Obviously, I would love to carry around the ZV-E1 with me absolutely all the time. It's just so much larger than the ZV-1 Mark II, but still, I will pair these two together really well, and I'll be able to tell the story the best I can with both of these tools. So anyway, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I did compare this to the ZV-1 original. I do actually have the ZV-1F that you guys can check out with a review on that one. So yeah, be sure to subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.